This is Josh, and welcome back to Porfection, where we are on part 4 of a 4-part video series on how I purchased $700,000 worth of vehicles over 7 years and drove them for over 100,000 miles for free. So the first video went over my personal experience and all of the cars that were involved and my purchase price and sales price and so forth. And then we went through 3 strategies that I have implemented on how to do that. So part 4 is about predicting the market and trying to purchase that next collectible before it becomes a collectible. Now, I will say this is the most risky method to adopt, and also the caveat is you have to keep the car in collectible condition. So this is going to be something that's not going to be your everyday vehicle. It's going to be rarely driven, well cared for, well documented. It's your toy that you're hoping to purchase and then maybe be able to make a little bit of money on in the future. Now, as of today, hitting that right when the entire market is dropping is even more challenging. You don't want to be chasing the market, you want to be ahead of it. So here's some strategies to employ. Cars get driven. If you've got a car that no one thinks today is a collectible, they tend to rack up the miles. So, many have enjoyed and continue to use their Acura RSX Type S, for example. But if you keep yours pristine, someday that could be something that is a much more rare vehicle. Cars that get modified, tracked, and wrecked. So, if you have a car that the tuner world loves, and that you see drifting around racetracks all over the country, maybe Honda S2000s, for example, keeping yours pristine, it automatically becomes increasingly rare. Third, it has to stand out. No one wants a collectible car that is dull. It's just human nature. So, you have to think of, why is the first generation M3 become kind of so popular? Well, it kind of stands out. It really looks different. Whereas the second generation, it was a fine looking car, but it just doesn't stand out in the same way as the first generation. You got to think of, why did C4 ZR1s, they're still not collectible. I mean, I know prices have gone up with the pandemic, and I do think that they are worth the money personally, but they don't stand out in the row of other C6 Corvettes. Deep down, I just feel like a lot of people want that big wing on the back of a Viper or a Porsche 911. Your GT3s and your ACR Vipers, look at the prices of those versus some others. So again, I think it's just human nature. People want to stand out. Look at production numbers. So, if a car stands out, if its styling is kind of indicative of the time, you think of the wedge cars from the 1980s and so forth. In the last 5 years, cars like the BMW Z8 or the Ford GT or the Gen 5 Viper ACR, you've seen a lot of those cars go from $150,000 to $200,000 cars to $300,000 and more. You think of the manual Supras. So look at those production numbers and look for cars that have a niche and a relatively low production number. And then keep in mind, the fifth strategy is kind of keep in mind the overall trend. Not always, but often, cars tend to start increasing after about that 20-year mark. That's when the teenagers of that era kind of, they have the disposable income to buy the cars that they always wanted. So I guess the most important thing that everybody wants to know, so what is next? Previous trends, I believe, that kind of followed prestige, rarity, outrageous styling, or power. But think about where everything's going. We're entering the world of electrification, resulting in cars that are really going to be faster, and already are, than anything else. I mean, a Tesla S Plaid, it rivals Bugattis so in acceleration. So I don't think sheer speed is going to be what really attracts people in the future. I think it'll be more based around the driving experience. So, you know, what electrics really don't offer, manual transmissions and the sound and the engagement that a lighter weight, because again, electrics tend to be heavy, they tend to be highly technical. So I think that more back to the basics type of driving experience will be what a lot of people are looking for, and will be, those kinds of cars are already exceedingly rare. So the last of those type of vehicles, I believe, might be something that future collectors are looking for. You know, a car that kind of speaks to your driving inputs rather than behaving more like a video game. And so here are my top 5 under $55,000. Now note, all of these have a naturally aspirated engine and a manual transmission. And 4 of the 5 are relatively low production. So my top 5 is going to lead off with the 1997 to 2002 Viper RT10. Now, again, with all of these cars, there have been price increases through the pandemic, notable price increases, and again, we are in a downward market. Maybe we don't want to buy today. Maybe we should hold off for 6 months or so. But I'm going to give, it does meet our price criteria as of today with some careful shopping. And I think prices are adjusting a bit. But long term, I think these all have potential because of the unique driving experience that they all offer. So again, the 97 to 2002 Viper RT10. Now these are currently priced well under the GTS coupes. And I don't know why the original Viper was the Targa top type design, but you're looking at cars that are a good example is $55,000, sometimes a bit under if it's got a little bit of mileage on it, even well taken care of and all of that. But your GTS coupes are up in the 75 range, even higher. So I think they have a good floor, and I think that's a price that will stand the test of time. So there were 3,626 produced in that time frame, in the 97 to 2002. Now let's look at the 2001 and 2 BMW M Roadster. Now they made these a few years prior to that, but it had the previous M3 engine in it, making 240 horsepower. The later 2 years of production had the S54 from the E46 M3. Now those made closer to 320. And they were very limited production during those 2 years. Only 735 were produced for North America. Those are available in the mid to upper 30s and up to about mid 40s for a great, very clean example. The next one, this is the one that's not really what you would say is low production, but the Honda S2000. These were made from 1999 to 2009, and 66,000 were produced. However, as I mentioned earlier, these do have a fairly high attrition rate, and a lot of them have been modified, raced, careful inspections are needed on these, but great examples for roughly $30,000, and I think those just offer a driving experience that we just won't see again. Number 4 is the 2012 and 2013 Boss Mustang. Now, about 6,803 Bosses were produced, and an additional 1,532 Laguna Seca editions. Now, if you're like me and the 2011 to 2012 and 2012 Mustangs had that ugly rear bumper with that plastic shroud around the bottom. So for me, I wouldn't look at a 2012. I like the look of the 2013. It's just a little cleaner. So if you wanted a Laguna Seca without the ugly rear end, you would be looking for one of the 765 that were produced in 2013. the cost difference between a Laguna Seca and a regular Boss, sometimes I'm seeing less than $10,000 difference. And I think for a long-term collectability, I think that that gap will only grow. My final choice, number 5, is a 2013 427 Corvette. Now, they produced 2,552 of these. There are a range of colors, and I think some of the more rare colors might stand out. This would take all of your $55,000 for a well cared for, low mileage example. But all 5 of those, I think, would be cars that will definitely hold their value, in my opinion. So I hope you enjoyed this series of all centered around trying to reduce the real cost between buying and selling of your next car that I hope you're able to enjoy. If you like this series of videos, please click that like and subscribe button. If you haven't watched the other ones, we'll have the links below, and we'll see you next time.